appreciate it. This is a lot of fun for us. So thank you for attending. We've got somewhere around 200 attendees today, and just really excited about some of the content we're going to go over. I've got a couple of helpers today who are going to do some live demonstrations. So Josh Haynes and Joseph Diorio will be helping me out a little bit. I always feel like presentations with some live demonstrations go a long ways to getting the water to the end of the road. So really happy to be with you. The topic today is about the finance team. Now, what the finance team is going to or could look like in the future, and especially how data is kind of at the heart of that, and how teams are using data to be more resilient and really to lead in their organization. So appreciate you joining us for the next hour, and we've got a lot of content. This is one of those, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. If I had more time, I would have made a shorter presentation, but wanted to start the presentation out with a little bit of math. This is your first question for your poll. Isn't that fun? So the question is, a bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Awesome, perfect. So 76% of us said 10 cents, and 76% of us are wrong. The actual answer is 5 cents. And why it's 5 cents is the bat costs $1.05, the ball costs 5 cents. Together they cost $1.10. That's $1 more than a ball. It's really interesting what your brain just did there. It was tricked. This is a survey that was in the Wall Street Journal a couple of years ago that I just absolutely love because of the quote that came along with it, which said, I'll just read it. When people face an uncertain situation, they don't carefully evaluate the information or look up relevant statistics. Instead, their decisions depend on mental shortcuts, which often lead them to making foolish decisions. The shortcuts aren't a faster way of doing the math. They're a way of skipping the math altogether. And that is what we are talking about today as a finance team. We're talking about people who want to stop and do the math, people who want to look at the data and understand what the reality is, and then bring in their gut to help make the right decision. And that's what analytics is all about. And so, I am Nathan McMurtry, by way of introduction. The way I ended up in analytics is I graduated in accounting and was just kind of in my normal, preparing the books with the organization that I was with, and they hired this individual to do business intelligence. And first of all, I thought it was like the coolest name of a job I've ever heard, business intelligence. I sat down with this individual for five minutes. He went over what he was going to do. And what he was going to do is he was going to take the data of the organization, all this customer data, and he was going to segment it. And he was going to drill down on it. He was going to analyze it to help the business be more profitable, to help the business grow faster. And after that 5-minute conversation, I was sold. I was like, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I thought accounting was. And I went and begged my boss to be part of this team, and just absolutely found out what I love to do in my career. And was super lucky to find that early in my career. And so, that's how I got into analytics. The last year has just been an incredible year. I love this quote. So this is the CEO of Microsoft, and he said, we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. And I've actually got reminded of the Princess Bride quote where he's torturing Wesley and he says, I just sucked 1 year of your life away. Now tell me how you feel. I think me personally, I kind of feel that. I'm guessing some of you may feel that way as well. But it's been a tremendously trying year personally for people and also organizationally. Everything got accelerated. And so that's what we want to talk about today, is how that acceleration is affecting finance teams specifically, and what data means to it. There's kind of this thing that this is kind of the calling card of our organization right now, and it's to make every company a data company. Really interesting things are happening in the world, even before COVID. So you've got leading organizations like Uber, world's largest taxi cab company, but they own no vehicles. Facebook is the world's most popular media owner. They create no content. Alibaba is this most valuable retailer. They have no inventory. Airbnb is the world's largest kind of accommodator provider. They own no real estate. And what's the common theme behind all of these companies? And the common theme is that they're connecting two groups of people with data. They've learned to monetize data. They've learned to connect rider and passenger. They've learned to connect, publisher and consumer. And data has become an asset. And the leading organizations today are ones that are monetizing data and also are looking and understanding their data better than everybody. And we see this at iBailey with all of our clients. This isn't something that's just happening with the Fortune 500. You come down to the mid-market, and those that are leading with data are the ones that are leading their industries. Even with that, there's some major problems with data. This was a survey that they gave 64 C-level executives, and 72% of them say that they have not yet forged a data culture. 53% stated that they are not yet treating data as a business asset. And so in my world, that means it's a liability. Until data is an asset, it's a major liability. It's siloed. It's creating a lot of work for people to get to. And then the last one is that they're saying they're not competing on analytics yet. And that is an opportunity. And I believe leads us into, let me do this one. So I keep like this log of all of the different groups of data challenges I see as I kind of work around, and they fall in a lot of categories. I'm not going to read all of these. I just wanted to highlight a few of them. The first one I wanted to highlight is this islands of data. I read an article the other week that talked about how many systems organizations are using and how the number of systems, depending on which vertical and industry you belong to, how those systems have just increased over the last few years. Marketing's got not just one system. Marketing has 5 systems or 10 systems. Finance teams are using FP&A and accounting and ERP, and you just go department by department, and the number of systems that it takes to run an organization is just exploding. Well, with that is creating massive islands of data. And I'm sure a lot of you are probably nodding your head on that, thinking, my customer data is not in one system. It's in 10 systems. It's in 20 systems. And bringing that together is how I can analyze my customer. The next one I wanted to call out is the rear view versus forward looking, specifically for the finance team. We're so, profit and loss, financial statements, they are all rear view looking just by nature of what they are. They're periods that have closed that we've locked the data down on. We've made the data accurate. We've organized the data, but it's behind us. It's already happened. And so specifically looking at the way companies have responded to COVID, those ones that are getting data in a more real-time fashion, that are responding, are more nimble, more flexible, and have these ecosystems of data already in place, are the organizations that were able to respond better. And we saw all across the board, we get this nice wide perspective as consultants, that we get to see a lot of different industries and a lot of different organizations. And it's funny, I mean, obviously different industries were affected differently and harder or easier depending on where you're at. But within those industries, those people who had invested in those digital transformation infrastructures are the ones that really responded better. I'm going to keep moving here. So let's ask another question. So I was just wondering how people feel like their organization is today. So how would you rate your company's use of data in decision making? All right, that's interesting. So just okay is our leading group at 43%. I wish this was a two-way conversation, because I feel like just okay and good was the majority. And I feel like this leads perfectly into the next kind of part that I want to talk about, which what is the solution look like? And the solution, a nice way to think of your organization is a maturity model, meaning you're somewhere level 1 through level 5. And how do you get to the next level? And this is a way that Gartner would kind of categorize, and I like it because there's some things that I'll call out here, but thinking about how you can take your organization from level 1 to level 2. Don't try to go from level 1 to level 5 and boil the ocean. Just mature to the next level. And I'll call out a couple of things. If you're just in spreadsheets and you're feeling that anarchy and you're at level 1, that's where you need to start talking about bringing in a visualization tool. You need to start talking about data automation. We're gonna have some great demos on both of those today. If you're at level 2 and you're saying, okay, I got some automation, I got some great dashboards, but they're not accurate. There's not one version of the truth in our organization. That's where you need to start talking about level 3, which would be a data warehouse, a data lake. We're going to start building an ecosystem of data that moves through the organization. The one that I really want to call out, and I think this is good for everybody here to think about, is on that level 3. There's a lot of words on this slide. The one I want to point out is that business executives become BI champions. This is one of the most key points that we see as we go from organization to organization is the groups that say data analytics, that's something that the IT team does. They have servers, so they host the data, they manage the data. When it's stovepiped in a technology like something IT does, or even just, hey, this is something the finance team does, that is not nearly as mature as when the entire executive team at your organization embraces analytics. Moving on, we love analogies with analytics, and the one we use the most is it's like a restaurant where we go from a pantry that has raw food to a kitchen where the raw food is prepared and recipes are applied and a dish is created, to the last one, which is the dining room. And the dining room is really about serving the food. And so data lake is where we bring in data from all of our sources. We get it centralized. It's raw. We're not manipulating it. We're just landing it. It's a great source of audit record of our data. We move that data into a data warehouse. That's where we're organizing the data. We're accurately applying rules like revenue recognition rules and inventory rules, so that when people look at it, that's our one version of the truth in that data warehouse. And it really does, like a master chef, it takes some real expertise to be able to organize data accurately and correctly. And then lastly, the data visualization side. This is where we're caring about how people understand the rules that we apply to the data. We're caring about how people are using the data. We're trying to push data out to all the corners of the organization and making and enabling analysts everywhere to be able to do analysis. And so think of those 3 steps when you try to put together your own finance data organization. I'm running way short on time, and I like I said, if I had more time, I would have created a shorter presentation. There's a couple of things I'll fly through here. The first one is this idea of really a North Star metric, a North Star KPI for your organization. What's the one metric you can rally everybody around? You've got some really great CEOs today. I'm a big fan of the CEO of Snowflake. He's Frank Van, so he's rallied the company around one metric. He judges himself off of one metric. If you were to look at Facebook, they ran their organization off of one metric alone, which was number of users and average users per day. It was something that they just looked at and drove. And so, what is that North Star metric for your organization? The second part is this Grand Canyon gap. Sometimes in our goal setting, we're constantly looking at where the next place is, and we're constantly measuring ourselves against the gap. I would encourage you to think about your business as momentum, measuring yourself off of where you just were. Are you making progress? And as soon as momentum slows down, treating it like an emergency. And how much momentum can you build? I love Jim Collins talking about a flywheel, thinking of your business as something that slowly gets faster and faster and faster and faster the more you execute on it. And analytics is the same way. Instead of constantly looking at the gaps of where we want to go, measure yourself off of how much momentum your business has. And I'm going to skip the last one for the sake of time, but some thoughts. I talked about aligning the metrics to leadership priorities. There's this idea of keeping value ahead of costs, I think that's so important when we talk about all the priorities of the business, but especially analytics, where we shouldn't, kind of going back to that maturity model, we shouldn't try to drop on, if we're at level one, we shouldn't try to drop on so many systems and costs thinking that that's going to solve all our problems. It's a maturity. And so making sure that each level you go up, that the value of what you're building stays ahead of those costs. I thought this would be good. So our favorite data analytics tools, these are some that we run into, we love. We're going to show demos of Tableau and Alteryx here in 5 minutes. And you know, we see this world of so many different tools, but there are really, really exciting things that are happening in analytics that are solving and just creating a tremendous amount of value for organizations. These are some of them that we're excited about. So specifically with the Office of Accountancy, really interesting trends happening here. If you were to go Google, you could get this same slide 20 different ways. And all it's doing is saying, what's the most important things for a CFO to be watching? And data and analytics, you know, 7 out of 10 on this slide I bolded as being related to data and analytics. And so, you know, the Office of Accountancy really does need to embrace these trends that are coming down. They're right at the heart of the finance team. Proposed changes to the CPA exam, if you haven't seen these. The idea of creating 3 different tracks where there's a business and reporting track, there's an information systems and control, and then there's a tax compliance and planning. At least 1.5, 2 of those really fall within what we're talking about today, which is analytics. And so thinking about where that is taking you personally. This is an interesting one where there's some major threats with technology and the way that it's going and how accountants are going to have to evolve. 95% probability of an accountant or tax expert's job eventually being automated. I'm sure a lot of you have seen similar stats. You know, us in the audit world, 50% fewer hires being hired by 2022. That's an EY report. Intelligent automation in the next 3 to 10 years. I mean, you'll see this with some of the tools that we're showing today. These are being rapidly advanced. And really the story here is this last one, which is professional and business services are just exploding. It's soon will be the 2nd largest employment sector in the United States, meaning people have to move up the chain. If your job is around creating a report today and getting that report out to the right people every day, and you come in and you spend 2 or 3 hours on creating that report, that is not the best use of your time. You need to start thinking about how to automate that so that you can move up into the analyzing and the assisting of analysis with your company. And so everybody in this field needs to start thinking about how to move up here in the value chain. All right, so here's your 3rd question. How important do you think analytics is to your personal career path? Very important. I could not agree more. If we took very important and combine them together, we're above 80% of the group. And I totally agree. Going back to my career path, I realized very early in accounting how today I wish I would have realized that accounting and analytics is not 2 career paths. It's career paths that have really come together. CFOs are the most analytical, I should say, leading CFOs are some of the best analytical minds in their industry today. And they're really moved into a strategic partner of the organization rather than maybe the yesteryear of go create financial statements. So wanted to share this. So Eide Bailly has made an investment in the same idea. We call this an exchange, where we've taken people from the firm and we upskill them. It's a 3-month kind of boot camp that we've added people to upskill them in analytics. And we ran this from May to July last year, and Joe's going to actually do one of our demos today, who was part of this. He gets our top left picture here. I love it. We're gonna the firm. I think Eide Bailly is just fantastic. This way of trying to get ahead of disruption, and they've doubled down this year and doubled the number of people and investment, and really sees this as a key initiative for the firm. And I'll put this out there that we do have a couple of spots available. if anybody has, if it's you or if it's somebody on your team out there that you're thinking, man, I would love to upskill one of my people in analytics, feel free to reach out to me, because I'd love to talk about what it would mean to include one of you or your people as part of this program this year. And it's just fantastic results of taking somebody who's smart, but maybe not technical. So smart in accounting and in audit and tax, but haven't learned the technical sides, and taking somebody and bringing those and upskilling those people. And the value is enormous to those individuals. So, all right, we are going to jump into some demonstrations, and I think we've got Josh first. Is that correct?
Yes. Thanks, Nate. So my name is Josh Haynes. I've been with Eide Bailly for a year and a half now, and I've really enjoyed my time. And I helped kind of run the exchange last year, and excited to run it again this year with a new cohort of exchangers. So what I'm going to be doing today is showcasing one of our favorite tools called Alteryx, and then later on I'll be showing Tableau. So here what we have on our screen is called Alteryx Designer. And what's going on here is up here at the top, we have just different tools that we can bring in. Think of these as Excel formulas, such as VLOOKUP and summations and such. So we just have our tools up here. And what we can do is this, instead of doing manual processes, let's say in Excel and such, what we can do is automate and make these things repeatable. So I'm going to drag in an Excel sheet from my file explorer, and this is just a random data set. Think of data sets in your organization that you take a long time to get through and figure out doing the same things. So I can select a sheet. So I'm going to select orders, and I have this input data tool on my canvas. I can see an example of what it looks like. Over here on the left, we have our rows and our columns. So just some generic data, and all you have to do is kind of drag and drop. So you can drag a select tool, select different columns. You can drag a join tool on here and kind of do a VLOOKUP with another data set if you need to do that. And as you can see, there's plenty up here. There's also some predictive analytics that you can do, some spatial analytics. And Alteryx it's very easy to pick up and very user-friendly, especially for those who know Excel. And here is a completed Alteryx workflow that Alteryx provides. And so what you can see here on the left is we have our data. So we have our invoice level data, expense data, and other expense data here. We're going through this pipeline of data transformations, data preparation, to output an Excel sheet that is the income statement, let's say for the month. And if you want to run this again next month, you don't have to go through and do all these calculations again manually in Excel. All you have to do is point this data set to a new Excel sheet, or even better, if you have it in a database, it will bring in the new data, run it through the same workflow within seconds, and you have your next set of income statements. And with that time savings, you're able to do more analysis and forecasting, which is where it's the most valuable use of your time. So in this case, what we're able to do is use some of Alteryx's built-in time series for modeling. So it kind of puts data science into the hands of the everyday business user. And as we see here in this browse tool, this is going to give us a forecast of our upcoming income statement. And here in this section, we see how Alteryx is using historical data, building this model, and then creating a forecast for us that we can use to drive action in the next coming months. So this is just a very brief high-level overview. And now I'm going to turn it over to Joe, who has a real use case that he's been able to use Alteryx for in his day-to-day job.
Make a point real quick. I
Yep.
think one of the important points here is what would the alternative in Excel look like? So we've all seen the VLOOKUP that connects to the VLOOKUP, that connects to the pivot table, and we've all had to like back like source, like figure out what, like we're looking at a number, how did they make this number? And 10 formulas later and 10 pivot tables later, you kind of understand it. This is making it so it's understandable every step of the way, self-documented, what happened to the data, where did it come from, and what does it mean? And that's a really important thing when we're talking about getting data accurate.
Okay, with that, I guess I will show you my workflow that I have been trying to develop. And just to go back to Nathan's problem screen, this would be addressing the manual data process. And if I think about that in terms of the audit world, as I'm an auditor, when I think manual data process, I think of the impact on the budget. So things that are eating up my budget, but necessarily aren't providing a ton of value. It's more or less mundane or tedious task. And so then real quick, my experience with the exchange, as Nathan was talking about earlier, I would say from a personal point of view, being exposed to the other departments, kind of creating those relationships with other members of the firm, it kind of elevated my personal perspective on the firm. And rather than feeling like an employee of Eide Bailly, it kind of made me feel like I was a part of Eide Bailly. And to be honest with you, I don't know if that sounds cheesy, but kind of getting to interact with a lot of other firms in different departments really made it feel a little bit more personal to me rather than just an employer-employee relationship. With that, I'll share my screen. And so just wrapping up on that, I know a lot of people are thinking, I'm going to lose some of my star players for 3 months. I think that 3 months where I kind of got exposed to this, Josh and Nathan got me in shape. I feel like I approach most of my engagements a little bit different. I feel a little bit better prepared to have, some high level discussions with the client if I'm on site or with the partner that they can maybe develop with the client. So for this one, as I said, this is more of an approach to fix a problem we have with manual data processes. And this is almost perfect timing because if we think about it in audit, we always plan like a week on site. And it's really easy to go on site, look in a filing cabinet, look in a box. The client hands me a piece of paper. With COVID, we weren't able to do that, right? We all had to figure out how am I going to audit without visiting the client? I wouldn't say this is a complete solution, but I think this is a step in that direction. The complete solution might be the other side of the Grand Canyon, but this is a little bit of momentum building in that direction, I believe. And then ultimately, what does this result in? This would result in increased margin or reduced budget on our side, which is a big deal in the audit and everyone, I'm sure. So if we look here, Josh kind of gave you a high level overview of all these tools. And I'm going to show you a little magic trick here. So here's a folder in our server. We can all see this folder is empty. So I didn't preload this, right? And of course, I hope nothing goes wrong. So what we have here is historically with audit, we get a bunch of files from the client. And then Joe and maybe another associate on the team spends 10 hours just formatting those files. Maybe they're huge and there's multiple files and we have to document the sum of this file, add it to the sum of that file, and the balance is within a reasonable range of what we were hoping to see. And then we test that data. So what Alteryx can kind of do is, as you can see in this workflow, it makes all those considerations. And if you think about all of these little icons as formulas in Excel, that's close enough. So you'll see here, like this formula tool over here, it kind of shows you what's happening. These are formulas to where if I'm a high level Excel user, I can kind of type that in my Excel sheet. And then the problem there is what if the reviewer is not a high level Excel user and then they're kind of, looking for insight into what was actually going on in that formula. To whereas maybe this provides a little bit more a better look under the hood that you can see. Here's your input data. It's being adjusted here. It's being combined here. Some cleanup, rejoining, some more cleanup, a summary. This acts as a check that in audit terms, I'm not sure how how many people here are auditors, but I'm checking here that the amounts that I input over here equal the amounts after I fooled around with the data. So I didn't lose anything, I didn't duplicate anything or create additional problems. So it goes through all of these tools and we get an end product. So here's a moment of truth. I'm going to click this run button. And what it does is it takes those files that the client can upload to us or to our My Bailey or provide to us in some other secure manner. And then I went through and it prepared all of these work papers. So if you recall, this was the empty file. And down here, if you look, there's only one file explorer open. So I didn't have like 2 file explorers there. Anyway, we have all our populations here. We have inquiries, material balances, and what each one of these work papers represent. And I wanted it to kind of be separated like this so you could just see a high level view. Is some of our audit areas we scope to this level. This would be a population of all those items. Some of our audit areas scope to this level. This would be a population of all those items. We do journal entry testing and audit. Essentially, that just means any manual adjustment made by management. We've identified all of those in this population. These are material balances, so we know these are accounts we have to look at to gain comfort that the financial statements are free from misstatement as a whole. This is specifically an operating expense inquiry. This is kind of a crude workflow moving forward to continue that momentum. We could add some level of analysis that looks deeper into these operating expenses and maybe provides an additional level of insight to the client. At this point, these are just identifying the changes that I care about as an auditor to cover my procedures and ask the client, I noticed some changes from prior year. Can you elaborate a little bit and we can document your response. And then with that, if you're interested in some of the other sides, what I envision, and once again, this is still kind of in the works, is we all have access to the server, at least the Bailey employees do, is you give your team some reports from the client, they go into here, and this one's designed specifically for the QuickBooks reports. They drop in their GL, their TBs, and their subsequent GLs, they save it, and then they go to this app, which I can show you what it looks like. In the server, and you get this little prompt that clearly opened up on my other window. They enter in the relevant information here, click finish. I don't want to waste anybody's time opening all these work papers. Click exit. So once again, the staff would only see this window right here, or the associate or anyone that's using it. They wouldn't have to worry about all these other formulas and tools and the canvas. They would just see this little pop-up here. You would close it. And once again, we have our output back. And so it's just that easy. And then if going forward, we can elaborate on that app, we could get feedback. This is working. I'm getting some unexpected results. And then, you know, we could get the high level players like Josh to get in here and fix all my mistakes.
Joseph, I think this is just fantastic. I think you're showing what happens when you take somebody who's smart in a very specific part of an organization, you upskill them with some tools, with analytics, what they can do. What Joseph is telling you right here is something that me and some from the IT background would never see, and would never see the opportunity to do it. And so that's number one. Number two is the repeatability of what, Joseph, maybe you can just make a comment on what does this mean from like a repeatability standpoint, you know, a library of solutions standpoint. What do you think on that?
So I think the repeatability is important. And if you noticed when I said the input reports were QuickBooks, so right now this workflow is designed specifically for those formats. So I understand, you know, with so many clients, so many different options for accounting solutions, all those reports look different. At this point, this is not a comprehensive workflow. This is more or less, I have a client that allowed me to that we have access to their data. I'm not going to share it with anybody, obviously. and they allowed me to kind of tinker around and say, if I get a QuickBooks formatted report, I can drop it in here and get what I need instantly. That might take a few hours. And if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, if you're on a tight schedule and you have a new associate that you're kind of walking through, you essentially have two people's time. So if it's an hour, that's really 2 hours. If you have this to where you can show someone where to drop it into it and they generate it, that's what, 5 minutes. And then you're documenting the work paper, and that still might take a little bit of coaching, which we all need at some point. And so I think you're really comparing, a few hours from multiple employees going down to maybe a few minutes to multiple employees. And then I believe that addresses your repeatability. The other item was, and this is kind of a fork in the road, is as I get exposed to more different or more accounting software outputs, either tweaking this workflow to accommodate that report style, and then you have a library. So you say, does the client use QuickBooks? Save your folders here. Does your client use Sage? Save your folders there. Does it use Great Plains? Theoretically, there could be a comprehensive workflow that it doesn't matter. You say drop in your reports and the workflow will identify which path to follow from that point.
That's awesome, Joseph. Thank you. Stacy in the chat said, wow, this is amazing. And I echo that. It's awesome. And in the meantime, Josh is now going to be queuing up. So we wanted to show a tool, show some data preparation and some advanced analytics. And now we're going to move into a data visualization, so the dining room of the restaurant. And Josh is going to show us an awesome tool called Tableau.
I did want to brag for a second before I share my screen again about the exchangers. They came in with no technical background with data at all, and within the first month they were both Alteryx and Tableau certified. And so that just goes to show how easy these tools are to pick up. And now all of the exchangers are still using Alteryx and finding great use cases, as Joe mentioned here. Now we have 8 more Alteryx people out in Eid Bailey creating these kind of workflows and creating these efficiencies. So now I will be sharing a tool called Tableau. And I am wearing a Tableau shirt right now because Tableau is my favorite, and you all should love it as well. So, so Tableau is a great data visualization software, and its mission statement is to help people see and understand data. That's all they want to do. And so, and they do a very good job of doing it. So this up here on the screen, you see a example dashboard of a store that sells furniture, office supplies, and technology across the United States. And so kind of what we're looking at is up here at the top, we have different KPIs such as sales, profit, average discount, quantity. Here on the left, we have different filters that we can apply to the dashboard. So if you only want to look at a specific region, we can do that. Here in the middle, we have a map, an interactive map that the more orange it is, the less profit ratio we have, the more blue, the more profit ratio we have. As you hover over each state, you can see individual cities within that state and their profit ratios. And then down here, we have over time, different product category sales and profit ratios. And so what we can click around, and if I were to click on Colorado, you see the rest of the dashboard changes to just be showing Colorado data. We can see that we're in the hole with profit. And so it's just a great way to be able to visualize at a high level what's going on. And so if I wanted to drill in further into, let's say, well, what's driving our orange states here? Why are they have low profit ratio? So I'm going to switch tabs to the customers tab. And this is a customer analysis. Up here, we have similar KPIs, but this time it is compared across different regions. So if I were to click the central region, I can see that the data points down here and data bars represent individual customers. And it's color coded. The more red, the less profit ratio they're offering. And if I want to analyze what these red dots down here mean, this means that the more we are selling to these people, the less money we are making. And so that's not a very good business model to continue. So I'm going to analyze this and click this view data button, and you'll see this pop up. Now I can see each customer name along with their profit ratio, profit, and sales. And I can drill even a step further and see each individual order, when it was taken, how much it was for, what they bought. And I can download this as a Excel file and send it off to account representatives and say, hey, let's reanalyze why we have these people as customers. Let's figure out what's going on. And so the whole thing that I just showed here took me 2 minutes to go from an executive overview at a national level down to an individual order item that I can take immediate action on. And so that's the great thing about Tableau and other visualization softwares that we provide, is it goes from high level down to action very quickly.
Yeah, and I think to your point, if you could just stay right there, like if you were just looking at this and we were just ranking our customers, we think Sean Miller and Tamara Chand are both our number one and our number two customer. And the reality is we should sell a lot more to Tamara Chand, and we shouldn't sell anything more to Sean Miller, because he's unprofitable. When the more we sell, yeah, we're not going to make that up with volume. And that's the kind of insights, as you segment and drill down, that really, I mean, tying this back to kind of the COVID response. Who are my most profitable customers? Making sure they're taken care of. What are the segments that are unprofitable? Making sure we've got a plan to either turn them into profitability or to let them go. This is where leading organizations really got ahead in COVID, is their ability to adapt, to respond to their business. If you tried to run off of a P&L last year from March and April, the business changed, the industry changed that fast. And the companies that were getting this information on a daily basis and responding on a daily basis are the ones that thrived in that area. And so go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, Nate. And going off that point, with all the changes that happened last year and continue to happen, data visualization has taken more of a forefront on the stage, as we see it, all kinds of COVID dashboards have come out. And it's a matter of having clean data and being able to analyze that data quickly that leads to actionable insights. And just to highlight some other of these tabs up here, we have let me go to this forecast page. So here we have our different customer segments over time. And then we see that this area right here, this is a forecast of what's to come. Tableau has some built-in predictive analytics that takes historical data, and then you're able to analyze, okay, what's going to happen? What's the potential for the future? Another one you can do with Tableau is what if forecasting. So this is showing all the black text represents actual sales during that month and during that quarter. And then the blue is forecasted sales according to these different levers that you can pull over here. So if we were to say that we're not going to focus on growth because we're going to be trying to keep our churn rate down, a user can come in here and change these icons and these parameters, and then the numbers will change on the dashboard itself. So it's a great way for a user, a high level user, to come in, pull some levers and make some what if analysis and make decisions from there.
I'm going to make the COVID statement one more time, which is, as business changed throughout, especially when things were highly uncertain, a business could come in here and say, yeah, new business growth isn't going to be 35%, it's going to be 10%. And customer churn, what would happen if it went to 10% when we typically have had 3%? And getting that information quickly was the difference between winning and losing. You didn't have 2 months of an analyst time to go and respond to what was happening.
Great. I think that's all I had to share about Tableau. Nate, take it away.
Yeah. So yeah, we wanted to leave a little bit of time at the end of this for anybody to jump in. I think Amy does have the way to, if you wanted to ask your question verbally, or if you wanted to put anything into the chat, feel free to do so. Yeah, if there's anybody out there that's interested in learning more about analytics from the iBailey team, we'd be happy to, this is always one of those, you're kind of just talking to a wide crowd, and it's always interesting to know, the individual problems people are up against. And so there's one of my favorite things to do is just to talk and listen and hear where people are at in their current state, and then really come together on what that future state of the organization can look like. And so if you want to have one of those conversations with me and the analytics team, hit yes, and we'd be happy to have one of those conversations. So Kevin asks, so how do you see industry using this? Yeah, I'm gonna say industry, meaning specific industries. We have seen a tremendous amount of growth in industries like healthcare, financial institutions, governments that are using these tools and using just data analytics in general to respond to where they are. And it's amazing to see all of the nuances as you really dive deep into different industries and how they needed to respond to the individual challenges that they've had. So I've got a question here about if they're a good fit for the program. I'm going to go back to, I've got a couple of positions in our exchange that I'd be happy to add people to, and to know if you're a good fit for that program is really mostly built out of a desire to be part of this upskilling. And there's definitely a big time commitment that Bailey commits to when they make this investment, but the return is there. And so that's how you know if you're a good fit, is if there's somebody who's you or your team that could fit into this and really come out with a strong understanding of analytics and what it would mean for your organization to really get a return on the investment. That would be a good fit. So just looking at some of the questions, I don't need to answer all these. So EB helps with consolidating data through multiple systems like tools like Tableau. Yeah, back to that maturity model, depending on where you are, level 1 to level 5, we have different toolboxes, if you would, of how to move you up to the next level. And so if you're a level 1 and you're like, hey, we're in spreadsheets today, we would come in and talk a lot about visualization and a lot about data automation. If you were somewhere in that level 2 to level 3, we would come in and be talking about data lakes and data warehouses and corporate strategy. If you're trying to go to level 4 and level 5, we'd start talking about advanced analytics and how to get more predictive in your organization. We'd be talking about this digital transformation. It would involve your systems and it would involve your cloud infrastructure. So there's a lot to that answer, but the big thing to know is that wherever you're at today, trying to create a vision for where you need to go is super important. I am an accounting student in Montana. How can I get more information about this analytics program? Feel free to, I think I'm your guy. And so feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to chat and see if you're a good fit. Well, yeah, if there's nothing left, I just want to thank everybody for their time. It's been great to just take an hour of your time. We love this analytics stuff. If you can't tell, it's an exciting time to be a part. There's kind of a wind at our backs that there's a lot of value to be derived from this. And you know, specifically for you and your finance teams, I think coming up with that data strategy and how to take your team to the next level is hopefully what you're taking out of this conversation. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.